That's caught. Randall Cobb into Chicago territory. Randall Cobb inside the 20-yard line. Randall Cobb is going to score.
Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of The Open Book. I am Eli Berkovits, and I'm here with Zach Jacobson. And we're basically here to answer any and all of your Packer fan questions, whatever you got, whether you hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you sent us questions, we're going to get you some answers. But before we get started, I guess we'll do a quick background on ourselves a little bit. So, Zach, why don't you start us off, and then I'll follow.
Yeah, of course. Let's get to the housekeeping stuff. I'm over at Packer Report, as is Eli, both of us handling some of the business over there. And now we're here handling some stuff over at Game On Wisconsin, answering your guys' Packer questions. And yeah, we're going to get to the fun stuff here today. Eli, take the reins.
Yeah, as Zach said, we are going to be answering all the questions you guys have. We've both been covering the Packers for a while with Packer Report and now Game On Wisconsin. And we just want to give you all the best info you can get. So, Zach, let's just jump into our first question that we got in on Twitter from Timmy New, who is handles at TimNew86. He says, knowing what LaFleur wants to do on offense and the identity he wants to create, should us fans not be so worried they didn't invest in a wide receiver?
Well, Timmy, okay, I'm glad we got to this question first because he was the first person to ask us a question.
Yeah.
That is, let's mark that down now in Game On Wisconsin Open Book history, the first question in our show's history. So whether the show burns into the ground or one day maybe we have our own little stint on ESPN, who knows? Who knows how far we go?
Exactly.
But, Timmy, you laid the groundwork. So, Timmy, first of all, they did invest at wide receiver. They signed Devin Funchess, and I know Reggie Begelton kind of flew under the radar because it was super underwhelming. They did it in January before the season was over. And I know undrafted receiver Darrell Stewart, not really, it's not going to shake the ground or anything. It's not going to get anybody excited. But I don't think you should be worried because the direction that these guys are going with the offense, I think it's made clear by now. And even Brian Gutekunst has said himself that Matt LaFleur believes Matt LaFleur wants to run the ball some more. And I think that's something that's being misconstrued right now among a lot of people on Packers Twitter. They think Matt LaFleur just wants to run the ball 50 plays a game and take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands and pull what Kirk Cousins did in Santa Clara in the playoffs and throw the ball, 8-10 times a game?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do that. You still have Aaron Rodgers, still have one of the best quarterbacks in football under center. You still want to utilize him, but you can do that while building your offense and stemming everything from the run game. So similar to that same lingo that we've been spoon-fed all of our lives while following this game, while covering this game, play action, creating big plays down the field from play action, it's a similar type of deal. The Packers want to run the ball more, yeah, but it's an offense that's going to be oriented around the run. They're going to kind of create just an emphasis around the run game. That's why they took A.J. Dillon in the second round. That's why they got Aaron Jones more involved in both the running game and the passing game last year. That's why Zayed Zagara was taken in the third round. That's why they took 3 consecutive offensive linemen in the 6th round. They're stocking up to move their offense in a different direction, in Matt LaFleur's direction. So I don't think you should be worried. There's a lot of talent in that room, and there's going to be a lot of competition in camp.
Yeah, I mean, LaFleur, obviously, he doesn't want to just run at every play. He wants to set up the pass with the run. And in today's NFL, we've seen offenses been able to be successful doing that. I mean, you have a backfield with a top 10 running back in Aaron Jones. You have a second-round pick in A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams, who, for a backup running back, is one of the better backups in the league, in my opinion. It makes sense to set up the pass off the run. If you could be an effective run game, running the ball 20-plus times a game, but then you could go and pull a play action, and that's when you can actually use the speed of someone like MVS and the speed of someone like EQ. We have all these guys that we prioritize speed with. Well, the speed's going to come out on play action bombs like we've seen Rodgers do to Nelson and Jennings for years before. So was it surprising they didn't draft a receiver or they just signed Malik Turner, but they didn't add a ton of receiving depth. It was surprising, but when you look at the way they shape their team with their tight ends and their running backs, there's definitely going to be enough playmakers on the offense to score points and be competitive. So I'm not overly worried about the wide receiver position. And moving on to our next question, and this one came in from Christopher Carlecki. His handle's at Chris Carlecki. He wants, is this a hypothetical, talking about some salary cap and compensatory picks? It's about to get real deep. He wants to know, with revenues dropping as we approach $175 to $185 million, teams are going to have to spend less naturally. So free agents will be making less money. That being said, how does this affect the compensatory picks awarded to each teams? Is it a sliding scale each year? How does it all work when it comes to compensatory picks?
I think that's going to be something that's really fluid going into next year, especially given like the unusual circumstances right now. Especially, given what we know right now of what the revenue was, what the Packers brought in July last month, they brought in, what was it, $506 million, and I think the player revenue was $206 million. And I believe part of his question was what he thinks it's going to come down to 170, 175 million. Yeah. So given that, I know right now, according to Over the Cap, the Packers, I think they're in line for 3 compensatory picks next year because they lost Brian Bulaga, Kyler Fackrell, Blake Martinez, and they got Devin Funchess. Jason Spriggs doesn't qualify. So I believe they would be in line for 3. I'm not totally sure, but I know given these circumstances that we're in right now, we're in such this time of uncertainty, so we really don't know what's going to happen. I think they would make exceptions, especially given the fact that we would probably see significantly smaller free agent contracts next spring, just given the revenue around the league and how things are just kind of like really in a state of flux right now. We really don't know what to expect. Even with this upcoming season, we really don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if we're going to play a full season of football. So the upcoming off season is probably going to be really interesting to watch as far as how the compensatory picks are dished out, how free agency contracts are distributed. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there's really no way of knowing exactly how it's going to go because everything keeps changing at such a rapid pace. One day there's a new rule change, then it gets voted down, then there's so much change going on right now. I think by next year we could have had 5 new rules put up and taken down before we know exactly how they're going to make it work. But obviously, yeah, the money will probably be less, which means free agent deals will most likely be less. So it'll be interesting to see how next year's free agent class goes about it, especially considering the Packers have some very key free agents coming up next year. So I guess we'll see how that all works out. And moving on to our next question, this one comes in from Erin Alice, our wonderful social media.
Oh, God.
Her handle is at Heroin. She wants to know, it seems like the Packers always have one surprising training camp cut. She wants to know who do you think that person could be this year?
You want to answer this first?
Yeah, I think a surprising cut, I have it down to 2 guys, and I think one could be Jamal Williams, which would be surprising, but you just got A.J. Dillon, and it looks like I might have stole your answer there, but that's just what it's hard to see, whichever way you look at the Jones-Dillon dynamic, it's hard to figure out a way that Jamal Williams really fits into it. So to save some money, it would not be a huge shock to me if they potentially moved on from Jamal, but it looks like I stole your answer, Zach. But if not, I guess maybe you have something else.
You kind of did. I was going to give 2 answers. One of them was Jamal Williams, but I was kind of apprehensive because he's the guest on Lombardi's Bar tonight, so I didn't want to
That is true.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that guy, so I kind of
I kind of just was that guy. Yeah, that was my bad.
And for all the reasons you said, they took A.J. Dillon. He kind of does the things Jamal Williams does. At least he did at Boston College. We don't know what he's going to do at the professional level. And the fact that Jamal Williams, he's going into a contract year, we have, we know what Tyler Ervin can do. And we know Matt LaFleur likes him, and we know that they want to kind of keep him in that offense just to see him flourish for a full year. So I wouldn't be surprised really if he's kind of pushed out of the lineup throughout camp. It's going to be, I hope not, because I love Jamal Williams and I love his energy. It's just, They're asking for a surprise cut, so we got to give them a surprise cut.
Exactly.
My second option was Oren Burks, just because we actually talked about this before, you and I. The kind of, I don't want to say depth, because it's a lot of unproven bodies there at inside linebacker right now. You got Ty Summers, Curtis Bolton, Kamal Martin, Christian Kirksey right now, the lead guy in the room. And forgive me if I'm missing anybody, but I know there's a couple other guys in there right now that are competing. But
yeah,
and Oren Burks, the third-round pick from a few years ago, he hasn't really done much. He's really had an issue competing for snaps. He's been injured. He has had the shoulder injury that's been kind of ailing him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of pushed out of the room as well, and he can't stick around on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, Burks, that would not be, I mean, it would be a surprise because he was a third-round pick and we haven't really seen him play, but it wouldn't be such a major surprise because we haven't seen him play. I mean, the guy just hasn't been able to stay on the field. And even when he's been healthy, I guess he hasn't been good enough to get snaps. So Burks could be someone to look out for. And before we get to our next question, just real quick, I got to thank Jacob Westendorf, our fearless leader, for our GW hat. Game on, Wisconsin, everyone. We're taking over. And also, before we get to our next question, happy belated birthday to the Packers. Yesterday was the Packers' 101st birthday. So everyone out there, wish them a happy birthday. And now let's move on. Yeah, you got it. So you got the beads going. You're partying. We're good. But our next question is about the run defense, which is obviously a big topic in Packers Twitter right now. So Katie Sunderman, at Katie Sunderman, wants to know, with LaFleur, basing everything off the run, we have Aaron Jones, the top 10 back. She wants to know, is there anything Mike Pettine could potentially learn from our offense in terms of prioritizing stopping the run, considering how badly it's been hurting us over the last couple of years?
To be 100% honest, I didn't totally understand that question.
So I think she basically wants to know is if there's anything that Pettine can learn from LaFleur's prioritizing of running the football on offense. Is there any way he could learn from that and creating a better run defense because of all the issues we had on defending the run last year?
Truthfully, I don't think so. Mainly just because those are two totally different facets of the game. I mean, maybe just based off of what LaFleur sees, because I know LaFleur emphasizes the zone running. So maybe what he sees as far as gaps go and as far as what he sees in the opposition's defensive line, maybe that's something he can kind of help influence Pettine. But I mean, Pettine's a seasoned pro. Pettine's been doing this for a long time. So anything LaFleur sees, I'm sure Pettine has been around about millions of times already. So he's been down this bend before. He has seen this stuff time and time again. I think it's just a matter of what did Pettine say? There was a quote. It was just about not being able to put guys in the right position or something like that. I really can't remember what it was, but like I said, it was just a matter of not being able to just utilize guys properly and just do what he wanted with them. It sounded like he was just undermanned, Yeah,
no, I think the talent was there. I also think they were focused so much on getting this smaller, faster defense, which is good because the league is getting faster, and that's what you want in your secondary and maybe at your middle linebacker group. But up front, I guess maybe some more meat, bigger guys, run stuffers in the middle, kind of like Kenny Clark. And I mean, that's really what they need to see out of Kingsley Keke or Montravis Adams or Dean Lowry. I mean, one of these guys need to step up next to Clark realistically for this run defense to get a lot better. Obviously, having someone like Christian Kirksey is going to help that, assuming he's healthy. But of course, the first contact you want is your defensive tackle getting in the backfield. So we really need to see an improvement out of someone other than Kenny Clark to bring the front seven to the next level, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's really what it is. It's more so not a schematic, kind of thing from what Pettine needs to look for and what LaFleur can show him. I don't think it's schematic as much as it is more so hoping for an internal improvement from the guys that they have, like Keke, Dean Lowry, because he had a really underwhelming year last year when the Packers really needed him to stay consistent, especially after they paid him. So, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm with you on that. Obviously, I mean, I don't see a huge correlation between LaFleur's offensive scheme to Penn's defensive scheme, but yeah, there's no doubt the Packers need to work on the run defense if they want to have a serious chance to compete deep in the NFC playoffs. And our last question we got in from Twitter is actually one that I'm the most excited about, and it is from Packers Positive, at Packers Positive. He wants to know, when Matt LaFleur says, quote unquote, there are so many plays we didn't get to, what does that mean? He calls the plays. If you want to get it, if you want to call it, call it. He says he just doesn't understand that. So maybe you can explain, what exactly that means when a coach can't get to that play that they want to get to.
Yeah, well, you're excited to answer, so let's hear it.
Well, yeah, I just think that there's a lot of things that need to be set up before. Yeah, you have a lot of great plays in the playbook, but you can't just call this play if it's not set up correctly. If it's a terrific play action, you can't do it if you're not getting anywhere in the run game. And if it's a great draw play or a run, outside run, and it's not working all game, it's not going to work then either. I think it's just about getting the offense in the right positions where you could pull off some of the more creative things that when they brought LaFleur in as the head coach, was kind of what we were expecting, because we were getting so used to Mike McCarthy, his 3 wide receiver sets, the same thing every single play. We were supposed to see a lot of different stuff coming out of LaFleur, and we saw that. We saw some of the motions, different stuff like that, but especially when it comes to the pre-snap motions, they were extremely successful last year when they did that, and I think that's something they need to continue to do more of this year, and hopefully they could then expand LaFleur's creative playbook. But in year one, everyone was still kind of getting the hang of it, so it wasn't all that surprising that we didn't get to see the full array of what LaFleur has put together.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the common football fan, not who specifically asks the question, just generally, there's this perception that this is Madden, and you could just roll out any play you want, throw the whole kitchen sink at the defense, and whatever works, whatever sticks, that's it. And you can just keep running it, or whatever the hell you open your playbook and whatever you think, I want to run this play. I'm gonna give it a shot. Plays every single play, everything changes, formations change, defenses change every single week. The opponent changes, everything changes. That's the reality. So you can't come out with this ideology that you could just kind of like dig into your playbook and just run certain specific things that you just want to run just because you haven't gotten to it yet. The time is going to come for those certain things, and when that time does come, you're going to store that away, like Matt LaFleur has. He's stored certain plays away, and he's come back to it at certain points in the season. I can't think of specific examples, but I've seen the cut-ups on Twitter from Peter Bukowski, for example. I've seen Andy post his own cut-ups of certain concepts that, and Zach Cruz as well over at Packers Wire, certain cut-ups that LaFleur has gone back to from earlier points in the season. He's come back to by December. He stores these concepts away. So whatever works once, there's no guarantee it's going to work again. It just works in that particular situation. It's the same type of deal when things are working. It might not work at one point. Yeah, vice versa. It might not work at one point. It could work in December in a different situation. It's just a matter of circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, 2 instances that come to mind for me are when they lined up Jamal and Aaron Jones in the backfield together with Rodgers, and they were able to do some pre-snap motion with Jones. And then I think versus the Vikings, Jamal Williams had a nice touchdown pass off a fake to Jones one way, went back the other way to Jamal Williams for a touchdown. And then they did it later in the season where they actually did the tap pass to Jamal versus the Lions, that Monday Night Football game, and he ended up scoring the touchdown. And I also believe they did a lot of that with Tyler Ervin towards the end of the year, setting up a play one week, and then a couple weeks later, you have a different variation of it that threw some teams off. So LaFleur, yeah, like you said, he has his plays that he likes and he knows he can use, but you don't go and throw out your best plays on a random 2nd and 8 when you have no setup for it. And then if it doesn't work, it's like I just put out my best for no reason. When you want to call those creative special plays that you think are really going to work, you want to know it's in the perfect situation to do that. If you rush in and do it at the wrong time, it's probably not going to work, and then you just threw what could have been a great play in the toilet. So I definitely think that that's a big part of it. And I mean, I'm just seeing here in the comments a lot of talk about Mike Pettine and his overall. A lot of about his scheme defensively. So it is true. There has been talk that Penn he doesn't prioritize the run a lot. More like he doesn't prioritize yards a lot. For him, it's more about touchdowns and creating turnovers, which the Packers were good at last year. They created turnovers. They were pretty good in the red zone on defense, but eventually yards matter. I mean, yards catch up on you. We've seen it happen. So what's your general opinion on that idea that yards in total don't matter and nearly as much as those other stats, and that Pettine really truly doesn't care that much about run defense?
It might seem that way, especially last year. We saw a lot of situations where it seemed like the Packers defense was kind of like they were in this bend but don't break kind of like, they were living in that mantra where they would just allow guys to drive down the field as much as they wanted, get down into the red zone. Then they would kind of clamp up, wouldn't let the guys score, settle with a field goal. I don't know the actual stats on that, where they ranked in the lead, but it seemed that way. And as far as it not being schematic, I think that goes back to my point about the Packers not really they were kind of undermanned to deal with that kind of, yeah, exactly. Thank you. It seemed like the Packers were undermanned to deal with that kind of thing. I mean, Blake Martinez, notorious for being the guy who would make tackles 4 yards past the line of scrimmage. And while I was very, very adamant about defending him, and while that seemed like it was his gig, it seemed like that was what he was assigned to do. That was what Pettine wanted him to do. Either that on the surface, or maybe that was his skill set. That was just what he was only able to do. He wasn't that sideline to sideline speedy linebacker, but he wasn't afraid to kind of crash down and, stick his nose into traffic and make a tackle. Only thing is that tackle would come way beyond the line of scrimmage. So I think it was just a matter of the Packers being undermanned, not so much as it was schematic. Pettine was doing what he could with what he had, and I don't think the Packers had a lot in the second level of their defense. Up front, yeah, they had the beef with Kenny Clark, and that's about it. Yeah. So like I said, undermanned.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, there's only so much you can do when not only is the interior of your offensive line really anchored by one guy, but then the middle of your linebacker group are not athletic, fast, downhill kind of guys. Yes, like you said, Martinez at times, he's definitely not afraid to get dirty and get on that hit, but it's going to be after a 6-yard gain. That's not really what you're looking for out of your middle linebacker. And now we just had another question come in here from Nitsuj Nomil, another one regarding Mike Pettine, and he wants to know if he doesn't adjust mid-game this year, could he be done as the DC after the season? And I'll just jump in on this. I'm with you, honestly, Nitsuj. I did last year. I was watching games, and there was a stretch of games. I believe it was the weeks where we played the Bears, the Giants, the Redskins, and the Panthers. 4 weeks in a row, you had Kyle Allen, Trubisky, Daniel Jones, and Dwayne Haskins. 4 extremely inexperienced quarterbacks, and some of them just not very good quarterbacks in general. And Mike Pettine continued to play this kind of prevent defense, like you said, like the bend but don't break, don't actively attack, more just okay, they'll get the yards, but it's going to take them too much time. But we saw versus Dallas this year. We were up 31-3. Next thing you know, in the fourth quarter, we're sweating out a victory. We were winning 31-3 in the third quarter. You should never sweat out that kind of a win. But if your defense is just okay, 3-man rush, 8 guys drop back in coverage, and then it's just, underneath, but that's going to add up as time goes on. So I do think Pettine needs to start seeing what teams do in the first half. And then at halftime, if you see it's not working, you need to make those changes, whether it's they're running the ball all over you, bring more men in the box, or if they're throwing it over the top, drop people back. But I will admit that a lot of times I was just wondering if Pettine's watching what it seems like everyone else is watching, because there weren't a lot of adjustments, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I'm with you. And that whole prevent defense where he's having guys play off for some reason, or he's having guys stick in zone and he's not adjusting when quarterbacks are kind of ripping this defense apart while the Packers are playing in zone, and he is not adjusting. Like Nitsuj said, no adjustments at all at any point in the game. Yeah. I mean, that's been a theme for the last 2 years Like
Yeah.
it wasn't even just last season. He was doing that same thing in 2018, and it continued being a constant in 2019. I couldn't wrap my head around that, and I don't know what it was, but it just, you were hoping for some kind of change to be sparked when they brought Pettine in, and for the most part, you did see kind of a change, a break from the norm from Dom Capers,
Yeah.
But I mean, we're starting to see people kind of turn on Mike Pettine the same way everybody turned on Dom Capers, and that's without the 2-3 year window of greatness that Dom Capers was in 2009 and 2010, where the Packers was just this dynamo of just dominance,
Interceptions, fumbles all over the place.
Yeah. And to be fair, in Pettine's defense, I mean, Capers had the guys. He had Woodson, Matthews, he had Nick Barnett, middle linebacker. Yeah, Nick Collins, who would be in the Hall of Fame, by the way, if he kept playing. I'm just going to make that clear.
Leroy Butler still deserves to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's make that clear as well. He should be in there right now as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mike Pettine, I think, and to kind of tie this into the next question from Titletown Rain right there, I think if Jerry Gray does a phenomenal job with the corners, like a lot of people think he's going to do, coming from Minnesota, and I mean, he already has. I mean, Jair Alexander was already confident before this year. He was already just exuberating confidence, but from his media availability the other day on Zoom,
yeah,
I mean, he was on another level. He's showing up with the glasses.
Yeah, those glasses were great.
Yeah, that was like a whole level of Alexander's confidence, man. Like he unlocked like this level of stardom that I've never seen before. So, I mean, if Jerry Gray can take that and just kind of like mold this whole cornerback room, which right now is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of unsteady because you don't know behind Alexander and Kevin King, you don't really know what they have. I don't know if you can classify Chandon Sullivan as a corner since he plays everywhere, and Josh Jackson's kind of like in a state of flux right now. But if Jerry Gray can do a great job with the corners and Pettine is kind of like on the rocks, this year, then yeah, I could see a possible promotion from within.
Yeah, it's very much like the Packers. Packers have done that in the past, promoting from within. And yeah, I mean, back to Jair and just I made a tweet. Someone asked him, are you elite? And his response, he was like Russell Westbrook, just like what? Like, yeah, I'm elite. Like that's the confidence you want out of your cornerback of any position. You need to be very confident as a cornerback, and there's no doubt that Jair Alexander has a ton of confidence. But mentioning the cornerback room, this is something that while everyone was talking about wide receivers and defensive tackles by the draft, I was actually looking at a ton of corners like, Cameron Dantzler and Christian Fulton and Jalen Johnson, all these guys, because like you said, behind Jair and Kevin King, it's kind of a question mark. I do have a lot of confidence in Chandon Sullivan. Like I really do think he could have a breakout season, but he's no guarantee. And you have Kevin King, who is entering a contract year and is pretty injury prone. Last year was the only year he really got to play a full season. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at a situation where if anything were to happen to King or Alexander, you're kind of screwed right now, or you're playing it very close if Josh Jackson doesn't take a big leap. So I mean, this is just a question that might as well ask, and my answer has been made clear on Twitter 1,000 times. But do you think it makes sense for them to bring back Jamal Williams?
Oh yeah, I've been in that same boat with you for months.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Why have they not done it? It does not make sense to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I mean, when I read that Jason Wilde article over the Wisconsin Sentinel, I think a lot of it is kind of based on what's happening right now with the pandemic and him kind of being a little uncertain, about playing in these conditions. So I think a lot of it is his own hesitation, and kind of just wanting to be safe for his family and stuff. But I mean, if he's ready to go, then I don't know what's keeping the Packers from pulling the trigger, because that's like with how well he played last year, he was.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was good.
Yeah, one of the top 2 slot corners on the roster, if not the number one. It was him, Savage, and Sullivan. I think we're the 3 best guys. So, yeah, you got to bring him back. He still has gas left in the tank. If last year showed that, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking even at PFF, and a lot of people have their certain opinions about PFF, but I mean, they ended up graded as the 9th overall coverage corner in the NFL. This is a 36-year-old, and that's damn good. I mean, forget the fact that he's good on the field. We all know he's incredible off the field. He's a leader in the locker room. He has brought up guys like Jair and Kevin King and Chandler Sullivan, who I've had the chance to speak to, and has personally singled out Jamal Williams as someone who was a big part of his progression. So for me, it's simple. You have to bring him back. Do you think with COVID and just everything going on right now, do you think there could be just like a silent agreement where it's like, we're going to figure out our roster, how it's going to shake out, who we're going to cut, and then once we make our final cuts, we'll just bring you in? Like, do you think that could just be the deal? Because he's mentioned he wants to keep playing. So if the Packers weren't going to bring him in, I feel like another team would have at the very least reached out. I know where there's some rumors with the Bucs, this, that, but I haven't seen in a while. So I'm hoping that maybe they just have some kind of agreement where it's like, once we cut down to 53 and we have a better idea of what we're doing, we'll bring you in. Do you think that's something they could have discussed?
That's actually a really good point, because it's mind-boggling that he's not on any roster, like not even like the Packers, like anybody, So the silent agreement could actually be, plausible. Maybe like they've been in close contact. It just, at the same time, like they said after the draft that, depending on how things shake out, seeing on who they would select and whatnot, then they would, evaluate what they would do with Jamal Williams. And now here we are, almost 4 months later, still no Jamal Williams. So I don't know, but the silent agreement would make sense. Maybe they have been in contact. Maybe they do have that, agreement in place. Like, hey, whatever happens at the end of camp, seeing how things shake up, injuries happen, give me a call.
Yeah, that's just what I have to think in my head, because even if the Packers decided just to move on, I feel like he would have been signed somewhere else. So that's what I kind of think is what's happening. And I saw Goody, there was some quote that said, that they're very well aware of where Tremont is at. So they're clearly keeping tabs on each other. I'm still very hopeful they're going to work something out. And so, yeah, I mean, Jimmy Christensen, our fellow Game On Wisconsinite,
our co-worker.
Yeah, Mike Daniels. That was impressive. Mike Daniels signed with the Bengals for $2.7 million for 1 year. What do you think? You think the Packers should have brought him in for that kind of money?
Oh, I was on a show with Alex Strofe, the Alex Strofe show, a couple months back, and I said if there was one free agency move that the Packers make between now and camp, so within 2 months, I think it was back in June, I said it was re-signing Mike Daniels, because the connections to Pettine, the familiarity there, and the fact that the Packers haven't really added any beef to their defensive line outside of Trayvon Hester, really like the most notable move. Adding Mike Daniels was the most logical, plausible, realistic move. And they didn't do it. He's a Bengal. He's in Cincinnati. So, yeah, I'm definitely surprised. I mean, for $2.7 million, I mean, that's nothing. I don't want to say that's chump change, because, that's about $2.7 million more than I have in my bank account. So,
compared to what I thought, it's not a lot of money. And to be honest, I was pretty disappointed when I saw he went for that. I was like, 2.7, what he is, the fans would love, he's a leader, also he has that attitude that, he loves to just be mean. The Packers have always had this soft kind of like energy. People always say the Packers are soft. Mike Daniels is not, and he would have been a very nice addition next to Kenny Clark. For $2.7 million, I definitely would have done it. They obviously they must think highly, I guess, of Kingsley Keke. Maybe they think he's going to step up and they won't need him. But another question coming in from Nitsuj Nomil, and he wants to know which room is most worrisome if it doesn't perform: wide receiver, secondary, or right tackle.
Want to answer this one?
So if they don't perform, the scariest I would have to go with secondary, because looking at last year, our wide receiver group, it's not like it was the greatest anyway. And between our run game and Aaron Rodgers being our quarterback and just pulling off magic, I think the offense would survive even if the wide receivers weren't amazing. And truthfully, I don't think right tackle is going to be much of an issue. We have so much depth on the offensive line. I really think Rick Wagner is a good signing. He's not Brian Bulaga, but he's not a bad player. And worst case scenario, you could kick out Billy Turner. You have Alex Light. I believe if you have to, Jared Veldheer is still out there on the free agent market. But bottom line is, for a team, if your secondary is awful, you're not going to win games because you're going to be giving up 25 to 30 points a game. And even if our offense is good, you can't expect a team to score that much. So I really think of those three groups, it would be most important that the secondary locks it down and does what they're supposed to do.
I was going to roll with the secondary as well. I think when you have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, he survived with Don Barkley, I believe, either left tackle or right tackle for
brutal, yeah,
for a while, protecting the blind side.
Remember Marshall Newhouse?
Oh God, don't take me back. It was like 9-8 years ago. Don't take me back that far. Yeah, I don't know which one was worse, Marshall Newhouse or Don Barkley. I'd probably have to go Don Barkley. No, Marshall Newhouse, because at least Barkley was versatile. He could play all over the line.
Yeah, but Newhouse happened to stick around the league. I was surprised. He was the starting Patriots tackle for a while. After
the Patriots love the Packers,
they take them.
Yeah.
Look, when you're two great franchises, it makes sense. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're not gonna make me compliment the Patriots on this stream. Okay? All right. Yeah, he survived with Don Barkley protecting him for a good while. And he survived with Jeff Janis and Jared Aberdarius as his starting receivers. And coincidentally, both those things happened in 2015. So I think with the secondary, like you said too, you got to have good guys in your secondary. The Packers have that. They got Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, Jair Alexander. They got a lot of versatile guys who can play all over the field. And it's not even including Raven Green, who come in and play at the box as a hybrid linebacker. They're thriving themselves on their versatility. So when you lose that versatility and those guys don't play well, you lose a huge aspect of Mike Pettine's identity, of his defensive identity. So when that falls apart, then whatever your pass rush does, it doesn't mean anything. So Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, everything they does, I'm gonna say a bad word right here. So whatever they do, it goes to shit. Okay. So
exactly.
12 sacks, 12 and a half sacks, it doesn't matter. Your corners are getting burned. You don't have the guys at the second level that can come down and be flexible. I think with the wide receivers, you still have Aaron Jones who can come in and play at receiver. You still have Josiah DeGuara who can come out and be schemed open. You got a lot of options. In the secondary, if those guys don't perform, a lot of things fall apart. In the offensive line, and like you said, Billy Turner can bump out at right tackle. They could fill that right guard position with Lucas Patrick, Lane Taylor, John Runyon, the rookie, who I'm just so freaking fond of. I feel like there's a lot more options to replace receiver and right tackle than there are to kind of fill the void in the secondary if those guys don't perform.
Yeah, but overall, I'm not too nervous. I mean, of those three groups, I think the one that would give me the most nervous right now is wide receiver. But again, we got Alan Lazard coming in year 2 with Rodgers. I really think that's going to help a lot. But speaking of receiver, just real quick before we close out. So the Packers brought in 2 receivers this week, Christian Fulgham and Malik Taylor. It seems like everyone wants to talk about Fulgham's blocking ability. Malik Taylor's made a couple nice plays for the Seahawks over the last couple years. Do you think either of these guys make an impact? Do they even make the roster? Were they just, camp signees, get some competition? How do you see them in general?
It's Turner, isn't it?
Did I say Malik Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Malik Turner.
Because we used to have a Malik Taylor.
Yeah, right. That's why I was like, when they signed him, I was like, did we re-sign the same guy? No, but sorry, Malik Turner. Yeah, Malik Turner.
If he's on the roster, and that's gonna be a problem. Like if Malik Taylor is still on the roster, that's gonna be a problem. Well, Fulgham, he thrives. Like he's known for like what he does as a blocker. Apparently, like that's what Pro Football Focus graded him on or something. I think you
were more biased or something. Yeah, like one of the best blocking grades for a receiver.
Yeah, so it makes sense why Matt LaFleur would kind of seek that guy out. As far as Turner, I think he's someone that could potentially stick around and kind of maybe cling on to the bottom of the roster. I mean, a lot of people were upset. They're like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers got his weapon, everybody. Oh my God, Super Bowl. Oh, the Packers finally gave him his receiver. Oh my God. It's like, shut up. You're not going to find somebody in August that is going to move the needle so drastically that you think like, oh my God, wow, the Packers are Super Bowl contenders now. Like if they like, I don't know. Okay. I just think Turner is going to be able to, stick around and compete for snaps, especially right now with so much uncertainty. Now is the time to load up on receivers to see what you have, just kind of like, circle around the barrel, see what you have in camp. We don't know if Jake Kumro is going to make the roster or if Reggie Biggles.
First name I was going to go with was Kumro. Fan favorite, everyone loved him, but he just doesn't make enough plays. And he's also somehow the oldest receiver on the roster, which doesn't even seem to make sense. So it's not like he's young and you have some untapped potential. I kind of think we know what Kumro is. He made some nice plays, but he's not going to be a consistent player. So I think there's a chance that Turner ends up grabbing that spot from someone like Kumro.
I agree. Because I predicted either 5 receivers make the roster, since what we talked about at the beginning of the show, they're probably going to move in a run-oriented direction. So there's less dependency on the guys at the bottom of the depth chart. That means Eggleton, Kumro, it's going to be harder for them to stick around. Turner could come in and push one of those guys off and claim that last spot. We don't know, So for people to call that signing pointless and just that's just so ignorant, You
haven't seen nearly enough of him, and we all know you put a receiver with Aaron Rodgers. If he has marginal talent, I think they'll make it work. So I'm curious to see what Turner can do once he gets onto the team. But Zach, that's all of our fan questions. That's covering everything else kind of going around Packers Nation right now. But before we head out, anything you want to leave the fans with? Some closing thoughts?
Well, this was a great episode, and I couldn't be Sternberger season. Yeah, I agree.
Zach.
I couldn't be more appreciative for everybody who came in and asked us questions, just giving us the content. Eli and I both appreciate you guys. And to address an earlier comment from Packers for Ev12, I will not take this flag down. Okay? I will not take that Lakers flag down. You're going to live with it. Go Lakers.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Go Lakers from Zach. And you can find him on Twitter at Wolven. That's a 0, not an O. It's possibly Zach. It's possibly not. You'll have to find out when you get to Twitter. Here's my handle here on Twitter at bookofeli_NFL. Make sure to give Game On Wisconsin a follow on Twitter at Game On WI with. It just sounds weird to say with. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be here every week answering all of your questions, and we're looking forward to next week. Thanks for coming in.